Seeing none. RS 2013-633, sponsors Matthews, appropriates $11,554,900 in supplemental appropriations from the undesignated fund balance and other sources to various departments and programs to balance their fiscal year 2012 through 13 operating budgets. Can I have a motion? And I have... Yeah, if somebody can... All right, and Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Interim Chair. Obviously, this is, I think we need some explanation to some of this. And Mr. Rubin, let me begin with you. In general terms, will you explain for us why the retirement incentive situation has sparked several of these supplementals?
Sure, Councilman.
And ultimately, what effect it has. I mean, we're doing the supplemental to do this, but ultimately should be some savings involved. And will you explain that situation?
Sure, Councilman. As you know, each year about this time, we come with a similar resolution to this, which basically is a supplemental resolution that transfer some funds that weren't expected during the year, and also provides some additional funds for those departments that had some overage in their budget for whatever the reason may be. As I said in my my memo to the members of the council, when we filed the legislation, that this year the amount is somewhat larger than usual, and a lot of that's associated with the Employee Retirement Incentive Program, which the council approved. I guess it was late in December, that just ended in February. For a number of the departments, as we said when we came to the council for approval of that program, we were hoping that most of the departments were going to be able to recoup the cost of the buyout in this year, during this fiscal year, but that there may be some exceptions where they couldn't generate enough savings in order to cover those costs for this during this fiscal year. And as you can see from the resolution, there are a number of departments that just simply aren't able to not fill positions, like police, for example. They can't keep we want the police officers on the street, and we can't keep the positions vacant to give them time to recoup the savings. So we need to go ahead and start another class so they can start their process to keep the troops, the police officers on the streets. So while it has some negative impact during this fiscal year, we have procedures in place through the budget office, and Talia Lomax O'Neill's here up here today, and any questions she can obviously help. But we're going to monitor these departments to make sure that we do recoup the cost of this in subsequent year during the next fiscal year. But it just has an impact to the departments during this current year. Thus, they need the supplemental appropriation.
Okay. Thank you. For the State Fair and the Auditorium and the Community Education Commission, those supplementals are coming from their own funds, correct?
Right. Those three, as well as the state trial court.
State trial court.
Most of that's coming from the drug and some special court funds. So in those instances, those are coming from their own reserves, and we're just drawing money from their reserves to cover costs during this fiscal year, some of which we anticipated when we did the budget last year.
And Mr. Cooper, as I recall, in our budget process, we took out some of the mayor's proposal for the fair and the auditorium. Was there any others that we knowing that we were going to have a supplemental in farmers market? So the council essentially put off having to do this, even though the amounts, as I recall, that were proposed at the time were far less than these amounts.
Correct.
Okay. Then my last question, because I'm sure my compatriots will have others and things, would be for the folks from schools. I don't know who's representing them today, Madam Chair.
We have several wonderful, esteemed individuals in the back, but I didn't bring my glasses up here because I didn't think I was going to be sitting up here.
Someone
so is there
from
somebody
public
from
schools
back there to come and address Councilman Stein's questions? I'm not seeing anyone, Councilmember Stein.
Well, I mean, and my question's a basic one. I'm just curious. This is described as being for for textbook funds. I was just curious whether there was a relationship to this and what went on with the state. But I also think that based on our prior discussion, and I'll let some of my colleagues who have been stronger on this than I am, I almost think we ought to take roll and see if folks that are here, and if someone's not here, I'm not sure we shouldn't put off action on their specific appropriation until they actually come up here. So, but I would leave that to the chair for the moment. But if it seems to me that everyone else may be here but schools.
Councilmember Garrett.
Mr. Chairman, if you want to make the motion, I'll be glad to second it. I just think with all this, I think everybody else is back there. And I know we're talking about the fine, I guess you would call it.
You move to amend it and I'll second it.
That move that they, that we, what, defer it?
Councilman.
Are we move it to the Hill or whatever you would like?
Sure. How about if I do this? Why don't we just go through and see if there's representation from each of the folks who are represented in the supplemental budget here? And if, I'll just go individually. We've got somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you. We have somebody from the Fire Department. Thank you. We have somebody from General Sessions Court. Thank you. We've got somebody from the Metro Council Office. Thank you, John. We've got somebody from the Parks Department. I see Tommy. The Police Department. I see the Chief. The Public Defender's Office. Yes, we've got Don back there. The District Attorney's Office. I see Tori. The Sheriff's Office. Absolutely, thank you. We've got the Farmers Market. Yes, we've got the State Fair. Awesome, thank you. We've got the Municipal Auditorium. We've got, Public Schools hasn't come in the interim, have they? No. Hospital Authority, thank you. We have the Community Education Commission, yes. We have the State Trial Court Drug Enforcement Fund, yes. Okay, we have everybody else except for education. So if there is a...
I will wait just a moment. I'd just like to ask a couple other questions. Rich, if all of these are appropriated, does that still leave a 7.2 fund balance in both reserve accounts, both school and...
Yes, sir.
ours?
Yes, sir.
They have the same one, the same
It just
balance?
ironically turned out that way. The amounts are different, but the percentage turned out to be the same.
Okay.
It just...
The only other thing I thought, it might be a little contentious, Saul, and you and I talked about this a little earlier, and I don't mind, do you mind just talking about this just a little bit? As far as, I guess I need to say this to start with. I got nominated and accepted to be on the association which controls where the state fair goes. Didn't attend any meeting and have since resigned because of the conflict that it would have caused here as well. Then they turned around and asked my wife to be on it, and she has decided not to do that as well. So John, I have taken your advice, and I have taken Saul's advice as well, so I have not attended a meeting and am not on that association. So, but bearing that in mind, Saul, we talked about, because of the charter, by charter, this council is obligated, we would be obligated to fund any overage for that the Expo Center was to generate, the flea market were to generate, and the Speedway. We are actually obligated by charter, in your opinion, to fund those facilities at the fairgrounds out there. And that you agree, and I think Mr. Cooper agrees with that as well? Would that be, is that just, I just need a yes?
I agree that those operations, those functions must be provided at that fairgrounds property, the current property. So to the extent providing those services costs more than the revenue they generate.
By charter?
And that's by charter that was approved by referendum.
Okay. And my question is I've asked Saul your opinion, and I guess John your opinion as well. We're not required because of the state law that was passed to fund the state fair. I'll ask Saul's opinion on that first. We're not required to fund the state fair, in your opinion, because of the state law that was up there.
It's a tough question the way you asked it. Let me answer it this way and see if this gets we believe that the state law that takes the authority, that gives the state the authority to put on the quote-unquote state fair supersedes the requirement in the charter that we put on a state fair. Now, if we elect to put on a state fair by leasing it to some third party, are we responsible for funding that? I haven't really thought about that one. John, do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if the Fair Board voluntarily enters into an agreement to have a fair on the property, whatever it's called, then, then I think we'd be obligated to ensure that their obligations are satisfied.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with if they did that, but actually the state law up there that was passed negates, in your opinion, the charter referendum that was passed that says that we have to fund the state fair.
Yes.
You agree?
Yes.
And you agree?
Yes.
I just wanted to get that out. So, and it's controversial, but at the same time, I think everybody needs to know how the council attorney feels and how the legal department feels along those lines.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. And then I'd like to make a motion that we amend out the portion for schools unless an individual comes in later on and we could take this up at the heel of the agenda.
And Councilman, can I just ask you, we have several lights on for people who have questions. Can you make that motion after we've had the discussion in case they're...
Yes, ma'am, not a problem.
Thank you so much. Councilman Tiger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some individual questions on these appropriations, and I'm just going to take them in the order that they appear. If I could ask someone from the chamber to step forward. Hi, Debbie Dale.
Dale Mason with the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce. Also with me is Rebecca Leslie, who is oversees really the Work It program that I know is the topic of the appropriations.
Okay, you sent us a letter and refreshed my memory that the chamber is asking the Metro Council, the mayor, to fund $75,000. Tell us who our partners are in this effort.
Definitely. We've already had $150,000 committed from the private business community as sponsors. Those companies include Asurion, Bank of New York, Caterpillar Financial, Dollar General, MDON, HCA, and Vanderbilt as Davidson County companies, and then 2 additional companies. The chamber has also put forth $150,000 in resources, both direct monetary as well as the staff commitment.
Who are our governmental partners?
We have asked both Davidson County and Williamson County to contribute. We've approached Davidson County for $75,000 and Williamson County for $25,000. Williamson County has already committed that money, and that ask was based on the number of jobs that were available in each county. About 70% of the IT jobs are in Davidson County, and about 25 to 30% are in Williamson County for the region.
So there are no other IT jobs in Murray or Robertson or Wilson or anywhere else?
That's a great question. No, 60 to 70% are usually in Davidson County, and about 25 to 30% are in Williamson. That leaves an additional 10 to 15% in any given quarter that fluctuate between the other regions. So the primary counties for those would be Rutherford and Sumner and Wilson and others, but it's a small minority making up about 10% of the jobs.
All right, so if Davidson County is $75,000 and Williamson is $25,000 for a total of 100, and we make up 95%, there's another 5 to 10,000. Have we made the ask to these other counties, or are we just assuming that they will say no?
The first 2 we approached, we did this program in 3 months so that we could begin to solve the business need quickly, which is why we chose the first 2 counties. And we've had interest from both Rutherford and Wilson to talk about amounts and partnership, because there's also a level of exposure for each county. So we will be approaching the others, but don't have commitments at this time.
Okay, thank you. If I could talk to the farmers market now. Hi, Nancy.
Hello.
Okay, I guess my first question is response to the RFP for the third-party private source to manage the facility.
We did not have any proposals submitted.
And what do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we thought we wrote it very broadly where not-for-profits, for-profits, would have the opportunity to pursue that, but we had no interest. We really had no phone calls about it, so I don't know.
How was it advertised?
The purchasing department sent it out to, I think, around 600 different people, different emails. It was targeted, and then we also did some targeting ourselves to environmental groups, the National Farmers Market Association, those kind of folks.
Okay. I'll turn to the deputy mayor now and ask, it was your all's goal during the budget process to try to highlight the issues at these non-revenue sustained facilities. Are you satisfied we've done everything, or are we just to the position that if we're going to continue to operate a farmer's market in Nashville, that we just got to bite the bullet and subsidize it forever?
I think I would characterize it as a work in progress. Thank you.
Councilman, I think I'd characterize it as a work in progress.
How long is this work going to take, or what do we have another strategy forthcoming in this budget cycle to break out of the gridlock?
One of the things we talked about in our budget hearing this week with the farmers market folks was sort of thinking about going forward what additional revenue opportunities existed on that property, and if so, if there were some, i.e. a market demand for something like event space, what would it take to make that happen? And so we asked them to look into that.
Okay, I think that's an excellent idea. Okay, I think we've covered State Fair. Municipal Auditorium, Bob. How you doing?
Bob Sconey from the Municipal Auditorium.
Thank you for being here. So we fell short, or we're projected to fall short, $188,000. Taking it out of reserves, where would that leave your reserve balance?
Well, the current reserve balance is at, I believe, 272. I defer to Rich if that is correct, Rich. That was the last one that I had a report on. 270.
The reserve balance for Municipal Auditorium?
For this expenditure. They have approximately $300,000 in the fund balance, so this would use up 180 of that fund balance.
So that gets us down perilously close to the one more year, and it's gone.
Potentially, yeah. Depending on what happens this year, yes, sir.
All right, Bob, are the losses less this year than previous years?
Last year, we had a loss of 40,000. We had a very good year. We've been bringing it down every year, but last year was probably the best year we had in decades.
All right, my debits and credits aren't equal. In a $40,000 loss, why are we getting?
About the prior fiscal year.
Prior, that was, I'm sorry, last fiscal year.
Okay, so it went to 40 last year, but it's 188 this year.
Yes, sir.
So we took a turn for the worse.
We did.
Okay, the strategy to take a turn for the better.
Have a little more luck on booking. We just had some dates that just weren't available due to some of our regular committed events, and sometimes it just falls out that way. There's certain people that want to be on a certain date, and it just sometimes doesn't work out that way. Last year, everything just fell right, and the previous 2 years did too.
Okay. Community education.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here. Explain the $67,000 for office expense.
We are moving in the current facility. We're at Cone, and so we're moving to another office in that building, but it's basically just a large classroom space. So we have to buy furniture, redo the infrastructure, conference tables, seating for students who are coming in. So we just basically have to build the office up from scratch. And we're building the office to accommodate more staff than we currently have. And the current office is only enough space for 2 people. This will give us enough space for 4 people, as well as some side workstations for people to be able to come in and use computers and that sort of thing.
And we've checked Metro's inventory of conference tables and cubicles, and there are no other equipment that would fit your needs?
We have been checking, and thus far, no, there's not. We're continuing to check, but currently, we haven't been able to find anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tigert. I have additional people in the queue. Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Barry. I had a question for Debbie Dale with the Chamber in regards to the new booklets for the Work IT. How many of those booklets have been printed to date?
To date, we've printed 2,000 copies.
Okay, and I know you added the information about Southeast Nashville, the Nashboro Village area, Lenox Village, and the Cane Ridge area, those neighborhoods. Will that be updated in the future editions that are going to be printed outside of the 2,000? Has there been an order made for the booklets currently from the 2,000 that have already been distributed?
So the 2,000 that we've had printed, we've distributed 1,000 already throughout the local community. We will be placing a second order when those 2,000 are done. We have works in progress with the designers to update the booklet in the PDF format that's currently on the website. And we're pushing a lot of people to that format since we're marketing nationally now. So all of the neighborhoods, as you guys are seeing on the website that are updated, the ones you mentioned, will be displayed in the PDF printed version. And then when we run out of the 2,000 printed, we will reprint with new neighborhoods as well.
Can you update myself, Council Lady Dowell, and Councilman Bedney on when the new booklet is printed and when distribution begins for those?
Yes, I'll let you know when it's online and printed.
And thank you for adding our area.
Happy to. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Lady. Seeing no other discussion in the queue, Councilmember Garrett.
Madam Chair Lady, with your permission and the permission of the other council members, I'd like to move this bill to the Hill. I know that there is somebody coming from the school board, and if it's up to you, Madam Chair Lady, if you'd like to let everybody else go.
If there's
I'll
no
leave
objection, we will move this to the Hill. Having said that, I would like to specifically thank the folks back there who came today from the Chamber of Commerce, Debbie Dale, from the District Attorney's Office, Tori Johnson, from Fire, Leanne Hager, from General Sessions Court, Warren Hazel and Judge Mordelli, from Metro Council, John Cooper, from Parks, Tommy Lynch, from the police, Chief Anderson, from the Public Defender's Office, Don Diener, from the Sheriff's Office, John Taylor, from Farmers Market, Nancy Whittemore, from the State Fair, Buck Dozier, from the Municipal Auditorium, Bob Sconey, from the Hospital Authority, Jason Boyd, from Community Ed, Lavette Curry, and from the State Trial Courts, Tim Townsend. We really appreciate that you all made the time to come down here today and to answer our questions. You don't have to stick around, but you can if you want. With that said, we will move to the next bill, RS 20. I did thank John Cooper. RS 2013-634, sponsors Matthews and Bennett. Approves a memorandum of understanding between the State Administrative Office of the Courts and the State Trial Courts to enhance courtroom technology. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013 and 635 and 636 and 637 we can take together if there are no objections. RS 2013-635, Wiener and Matthews approves an application for a pass-through grant of $939,342 for the Greater Regional Council to Metro Social Services to provide meals at congregate meal sites and meal delivery services to eligible seniors. RS 2013-636 sponsors Wiener and Matthews, approves an application for a grant of $72,200 from the Greater Regional Council to Metro Social Services for personal care and homemaker services. And RS 2013-637 sponsors Wieners and Matthews, approves an application for a grant of $70,000 from the Greater Regional Council to Metro Social Services to provide transportation to eligible seniors and disabled residents. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-640 sponsors Jernigan, accepts certain incomplete infrastructure located within Phase 1 of the River Landing subdivision. And Do I have a letter? I do not have a letter. Rule. We will defer by rule for one meeting. RS 2013-641 sponsors Claiborne, Potts, and Matthews. Approves a contract between the state and metro government for the installation of a traffic signal at the Donaldson Pike intersection with Allen Road and Old Elm Hill Pike. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-642 sponsors Allen, Moore, and others. Approves a contract between the state and metro government for the installation of a traffic signal, ooh, excellent, at the 21st Avenue South intersection with Children's Way and Capers Avenue. Any discussion? Council Lady Allen, any discussion?
Great.
All those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-644 sponsors Moore, Matthews, and Claiborne. Approves an amendment to an agreement between Metro Government and the Stallman Redevelopment Partners, LLC, for the use of up to 175 parking spaces in the courthouse garage by extending the term of the agreement for 7 years. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-646 sponsors Matthews and Gilmore. Approves a grant of $90,000 from the Friends of Centennial Park and the Parthenon for Metro Parks to provide funding for a full-time Metro Parks employee. Can I have a motion? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-648 sponsors Matthews. Do we have somebody who can sign on to this? You already signed this one? Okay, great. Authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Asia S. Smith against the Metropolitan Government for the amount of $9,000. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. RS 2013-649 sponsors Matthews and Stein. Authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle Metro Government's personal injury claim against Amder Upton to the amount of $8,333. Can I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. Oh, sure. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been informed that the caption for RS 2013-644 was incorrect, so let me read that one again. Resolution number 2013-644 sponsors Moore, Matthews, and Claiborne, a resolution approving an amendment to a lease agreement between the state of Tennessee and the Metropolitan Government. May I have a motion? Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. BL 2013-395 sponsors Matthews and Banks, approves a settlement agreement with Comcast One LLC, and approves a new cable franchise agreement with Comcast. There are 3 proposed amendments. So should we take those amendments first?
Let's get a motion
Let's have a motion on the bill. Excellent. And we'll have Councilman Tigert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I move any amendments, if I do move any amendments, I have a general question and some discussion about the first part of this, which was the settlement part, that there was some kind of controversy and there was a negotiated settlement. Can you talk to us a little bit about what caused this discrepancy in the first place? And there was an audit done, and it was determined that Comcast had underpaid Metro Government?
Yeah, we had retained, I'm not sure if Keith's department or Keith Urban's department, we did retain an audit who's very familiar with Comcast operations. And she went in and dug what I would say extremely deep to see if every penny they owed us was in fact owed. And under her analysis, I believe the number was, I want to say 1.4 million. And then there's an interest, I think there's over 20, or I think it's at 18%, Terry? Interest rate per annum. So the interest was another $640,000. It was almost $2 million, a little over 2, I believe, is the last number we had. So she reported her results to Comcast. They retained somebody to dispute what she came up with, and then she sent, so their auditor sent a long letter to us explaining how, no, we calculate revenues a different way. This is how we do it. And so there was kind of a he said, she said, and I think both sides had decent arguments. Both sides had some problems with it. And so we decided to negotiate. We didn't really look at the interest. Maybe that was a mistake on our part. We looked more at the substance, given that the interest rates have been so low the last few years. So at the 1.4, we captured about close to 60% of it in the compromise, about $800,000 out of the 1.4. So that's where we ended up.
And this dispute or underpayment was based on franchise fees, right-of-way?
It's really based on what the definition of revenue was in the agreement. And for example, whether advertising fees earned by a subsidiary of Comcast would be included in revenue. That was one example. And the definitions are so broad that you can argue yes, it clearly was, or you can argue no, there's no way that this kind of subsidiary was supposed to, which the local franchise has no control over, should be included. Then they got a certain amount of money, for example, for insufficient funds when somebody writes a bad check or for account close. They give a penalty to the person who wrote the bad check, and that penalty is applied. Is that revenue? Is that not revenue? They argued it wasn't. We argued that it was. And so those were the kind of things. It was nothing that I would say was.
There was no deception.
No, not in my, coming fresh to this, I would say no. It was stuff that really was, we dug very deep, and she did a great job, and this woman knows Comcast very well and knew where to look. I'm not taking anything away from her, but it's not stuff that you would think of when you think of revenue.
All right, and this proposed new agreement identifies all of these revenue sources. It clears up all of these broad definitions. It makes it picture perfect clear what Metro is doing.
I don't think you're ever going to make it picture perfect clear, but what we're going to do is and Keith is here, but Keith is going to audit them religiously every 3 years. Every 3 years, right? So we're going to bring the issues up a lot more quickly than we did last time. And so I think they understand how we feel about this, and I'm assuming that they're going to include those in their revenue calculation going forward.
Yeah, okay. I guess I was seeing Councilman Garrett up there. I was going to say I don't have anything against Comcast. In fact, I watched Vanderbilt beat Tennessee and sweep the series on Comcast this weekend. So that's just a side point there, I guess. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move amendment number 1, please.
John, do you want to explain it? Or Councilman Tiger?
John can, but basically it asks our cable partners, whether it be Comcast or any other partners, that before rates are raised in the future, that there be a public hearing before this body and justification given on those rate increases.
So do I have a motion on the amendment?
Well, he can offer the motion.
Oh, you can, I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep up here.
So is there a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chairlady, with a question.
Okay, Councilman Garrett.
This is a legal question. Can we do this, or is there something at the state level that does not allow us to do this?
It's actually federal law provides that if there is competition in an area, which there is, you've got DirecTV and AT&T and other video service providers. If there's competition in an area, then a local government cannot, is basically preempted from regulating rates.
So what you're saying is what we're doing here.
The amendment would not have a legal effect.
So it makes it basically null and void. If we passed it, it doesn't mean anything.
Correct.
With a brief comment, and then I will make a motion to take care of the issue that Councilman Garrett raised. During the course of these negotiations between Metro and Comcast, who was at the table at these negotiations? And I would, Saul or Rich or Greg or whoever.
So Keith Urban from IT, Jackie Schrader? Schrago. Jackie Schrago, who represented our CATV committee, and legal, basically. There was a 3, and Terry Custodes and myself are the main representatives. Am I missing anybody? Oh, we had some outside counsel from Washington as well, who we would consult with on the phone.
Is there a reason that we would not have had someone representing the viewing constituency at that table? In other words, we got Metro's Cable Access TV Committee, and we've got Metro government who has a financial interest in this, and we have lawyers making sure that we do all this stuff right, and we have Comcast protecting their interest. Should there have been someone there representing the public at large?
I think this
the ratepayer?
No, I think that's a good question. I think, from my understanding, that's the purpose of the representative government, and that we do elect people to represent the best interests of the community, and that's what we really did and attempt to do. Knowing, however, that when it came to rates, we're kind of limited on what we could and could not negotiate.
So you're saying CATV was the representative for the public?
I think CATV, and we also had the participation, not at the table, but we kept, this is where I get a little confused with my acronyms, but the NECAT people who actually do run I know you're talking about probably rates more than public television, but the NECAT people do the public TV stations were also represented very
and I understand their role for the general public, but they also need a funding source and had a financial interest in this bill to make sure. Who represented Ma and Pa ratepayer?
I guess that would be Keith, myself, and Jackie. So we do try to keep
the rates
those
that go up.
interests.
I'll just have people call you and Keith and talk about it. So, with this being said, that's a concern of mine, though.
I understand.
Before I move to withdraw this, I just wish in the future that there would be an independent someone representing 50 Forward or AARP or homeowner associations that doesn't have a vested interest, that would just ask the question, why is this something that the average citizen ratepayer should be behind, and that being lacking. So, Madam Chair, I would withdraw my First Amendment.
Thank you. The amendment has been withdrawn. There are two subsequent amendments. Would you like to speak to
I would
those?
like to move Amendment number 2, please.
Okay. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councilman Garrett. Any discussion?
John, is this the cable adapter?
Yes.
Okay. I guess, first of all, let me just ask, in your analysis, John, is this possible, or have we have problems with this one from any governmental agency?
Since I'm not an expert on
we need the
this type of
Washington attorney.
I will probably defer to Terry Casonas, but in my research over the weekend and today, I could not find anything that would preclude such a provision from being in the ordinance.
Okay. Terry, before we go there, let me make sure the council members and viewing public understand what I'm talking about. Most of us back in the days of the change from analog to digital received this notice from Comcast, and it talked about a June 9th, 2010 drop dead period. You must act if you want to keep all these neat TV stations and channels. And then in big bold letters, there's a picture of a digital adapter, and it says no additional charge for up to 2 adapters. So Comcast, to me, made a pledge to us, the citizens of Nashville, and especially our seniors and those on fixed incomes, that there would not be a charge for 2 adapters. If you had 3 TVs or more and needed additional adapters, it clearly states they're $1.99 a month. Now, 3 years later, this free adapter has gone away, and each of you all will see on your bill $1.99 per adapter. And this amendment that I'm offering tonight would not allow Comcast to collect that fee. So I'll turn it over to Terry for a comment.
I'm not sure if I understood the amendment when I read it earlier in terms of what you're currently describing. I do think that there are some representatives of Comcast that are here, and they may be able to address more specifically the change that you're referencing. But as far as legal concerns on the amendment, I do not know whether they would consider the fee that they charge for the DTA to be actually kind of like a cost for the equipment or for continuing to provide service through it, and whether it would therefore come under the rate issue. But other than that, I can't think of a legal reason that would be prohibitive.
Great, thank you.
I have some additional lights on, but is there somebody here from Comcast that would like to address Councilman Teigert's?
Good afternoon, committee members. James Weaver with Waller here today representing our client, Comcast. As I understand it, the question is whether or not we treat the monthly $1.99 DTA charge as a rate, and we do consider it a rate, and we do take the position it's preempted by federal law, the same as the amendment number 1. That's from a purely legal standpoint. From a more of a policy standpoint, I'll take this opportunity to say that Comcast has spent the last 3 years negotiating with the CATV Special Committee and the IT department with regard to this franchise agreement, the settlement agreement, and the revisions to the ordinance that you have in front of you, or that'll be in front of the whole council tomorrow night. These 3 pieces of legislation are tied together. In terms of the business terms that we negotiated with, and obviously this change that's proposed, while we believe that it is preempted, but beyond preemption, it puts the entire package at risk. As I said in my email some of you may have read this afternoon, Comcast, all video providers have a choice with regard to their franchise with any city in the state of Tennessee. They can choose to come through the municipality, in this case through the council, and do their franchise agreement that way, or they can do their franchise agreement through the state. Our competitors have chosen to use the state route. Comcast, however, has decided to go a different way and come and deal directly with its customers and with the elected representative of its customers. We had a choice, and we chose to be here today in front of you with this agreement and with this entire package. I'll let Metro Legal or IT or the CATV talk about the process that we went through in order to balance the various interests that are involved. But at the end of the day, the most important thing to remember with regard whether we're talking about this charge or whether we're talking about the next amendment, so I won't bore you with this speech twice, is that cable services, video services, are competitive. Comcast is in a competitive situation. It does not have a monopoly. Our customers have a choice. They can go with AT&T, who chose to go down to the Polk building and get themselves a fast and quick state franchise agreement, or they can go with the Dish Network, or they can go with Hulu or Apple TV or Netflix TV or any of the other competing services that are out there. We're not in a situation when we price things, whether it's a DTA or whether it's a package or whether it's a movie channel, we do so in a competitive environment. And we do so knowing that if we change our prices and we don't compete, we lose our customers. This is a complete, total change from the old days when you had a franchise agreement and whoever had that franchise was the only provider. And in that case, obviously the council had and the administration had a very important role in ensuring that the consumer was protected. Today, the consumer can vote. They vote with their feet. If they don't like Comcast, they can go sign up for AT&T. And we have to think about that every day. Everything we charge, every fee that we do has to be thought of in the context of that if we don't compete, we lose. So, answer your question, we believe that the DTA charges are fees as that term is defined under the Federal Cable Act of 1996, and thus it would be preempted.
So why, when you all put out this, Mr. Weaver, would you not warn the consumer that $1.99 or the 2 free adapters could change in the future?
the two responses to that. Number one, what the process that Comcast was going through at that time, when that notice was sent out that Councilman Tigert is talking about, we were going through the digital conversion. And it was a situation where one day the citizens of this city and our customers were going to wake up and they were going to turn on their television and turn it over to Channel 3 to see a rerun of this body's work, and they weren't going to be able to see it. So when we were going through the conversion, the most important thing to Comcast and everybody else was involved is that we got every single person in this city who had an analog TV one of those boxes. Now, that said, Comcast in its business model reviews its rates, reviews what it charges for boxes, for channels, for packages, year over year over year over year. And it does so, as I said earlier, in a competitive environment. Do I wish, in hindsight, standing up here, answering this question from you, that perhaps we had worded that slightly differently? I sure do. But from a business standpoint, Comcast reviews its rates in a competitive atmosphere every single year, and that competitive atmosphere includes pricing for the various equipment that you have to use the service.
Comcast bought this equipment that they installed in my house. It's paid for. It's been there for 2.5 years. So there's no additional expense to Comcast. So now you've found a pot of money at $1.99 a month that impacts our seniors more than it impacts me and some of the other folks in this body. I think that is one of the most worst business moves that I can imagine, that you give something to people and you have an expectation, and now you have zero cost in this document, in that piece of equipment, and now it's $1.99 to the people who could least afford it.
And I appreciate your position on that. Comcast, over the last 8 years, has spent about $1.6 billion in the state of Tennessee with regard to infrastructure. Comcast's largest market in the state of Tennessee is metropolitan Nashville, Davidson County. So a significant portion of that $1.6 billion has been spent here. Again, at the end of the day, when Comcast decides pricing, it does so not as a monopoly, but it does so as a company that's in the business of selling services in a competitive environment to people, regardless of age, regardless of economic circumstance. We still believe today, right now in Nashville, the cheapest way to look at video services is to use this $1.99 converter.
Is this converter available at Radio Shack or other electronic stores?
I do not know.
I've been told that I can go buy it for $25 and pay for it in a year. If Comcast is this benevolent servant of the people here, and I'm a Comcast user, I just gave you my bill at both home and office. So don't lose it, by the way.
With a check.
Yeah.
With a check to pay for it.
With checks to pay for
right,
it.
You didn't
Thank
give
you.
it to me to
So
pay.
I am a Comcast user. So I was hoping you're going to pass it on to Ms. Comcast.
I need some water, somebody.
But the point is, you know, this great investment and all this other stuff that you're talking about, if I can go buy that unit at $25 at an electronics store, I would think Comcast ought to share that with us, the public, and say, hey, if you don't like this $1.99 that we've been giving to you for free for 2.5 years, go buy it elsewhere. Madam Chair,
Thank you, Council.
I'm done. I'm ready to.
Great. We have a second on that amendment. I have other lights on who want to speak on the amendment. Is that correct? Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. For those of you that know my history with Comcast, I have been a frequent critic and I think a positive factor for the city over the last several years about the discussions that have gone on. So I'm in an awkward position today, but I'm in an awkward position because while I agree with my colleague on this, I disagree with the tone he took earlier about those folks that have negotiated on behalf of the city. And the folks in the CATV committee are wonderful volunteers who have spent literally hours over the last few years to no remuneration of their own. This is not a money-making operation, folks, as we're about to discover over the next few years. They are really, really good people, led by Jackie Schrago, who, however she fell into this, has become one of the world's experts on all of this for no remuneration at all, in conjunction with Keith Durbin and our legal department, who have negotiated all of this with their hands tied behind their back. Because clearly, while Comcast wants to be us all to think they're the good guy because they didn't go to the state, I guarantee you there's a reason there's here and not at the state, and I don't understand it all, but nevertheless, they're here, and all of that was negotiated, and federal law and all sorts of things have really, really confined what we as a city can do in this discussion. So I'm not about to put myself in a position where I am going to second guess all of that discussion. And my understanding is this whole agreement, ends May 31? So, I mean, is that not correct? So, I mean, we've got...
It ends on May 5th, so we have to do this again?
No, the current one.
Okay.
The current one. No, we have to do something, or else there's no agreement.
Right.
I apologize for that phrasing. So while I don't think I could agree with Councilman Tygart more, I'm going to actually vote against his amendment because I do believe that this is one of those instances where we have to hold our nose and we have to pass this for the $800,000 in the settlement. When we get on the bill, we'll talk about the $200,000 for PEG, but all of that is not necessarily going to happen if we don't approve this. So it is a lesser of several difficult situations and separate evils. So I urge you all, despite the best of intentions and my agreement with the total tone of the amendment, I urge you all to vote no and honor this agreement, and let's get it passed. And unfortunately, it's the best we can do.
Thank you, Councilmember Stein. Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Jim, would you like to introduce who you have with you? Yes, sir. Sorry, I should have done that earlier. I have Sarah Jo Hoagland, who is the Director of Community and Government and Public Relations for Comcast in Tennessee, but not only here in Nashville. I would just suggest that all of y'all here get her card, and she is who you need to call if you have trouble with Comcast. And Sarah Jo, I'm just, that she's got it back there, and she does a good job at what she does.
James, if you can just hold it up to the camera so that the folks at home can just have that number.
Just never miss an opportunity here to try to help folks. But Jim, let me just say that having been in the legislature for 20 years, he and I have worked together before, and I've heard these conversations before. And I guess you could say to some extent with Comcast, they've been a little, it's a little like, well, we threaten to do this, and we threaten to do that, and we threaten to pull out of the county, and we threaten not to, and all. But I have to tell you, Jim, you don't work for Comcast. You're their lobbyist. And I'm a little disappointed, Sarah Jo, that there's not some other folks back there with you that could answer Charlie Tygart's question about why that. I mean, that's not really your job to be answering that question. In addition to Sarah Jo and I, the rest of the Comcast team will be here tomorrow night. But I would really appreciate it if they'd have been in, because as good as you are with words, that's not any way, shape, form, or fashion you could explain why that's done that way, because that was made in a boardroom with no lobbyist present. That was made in a decision someplace else. Yes, sir. So, I mean, and that disappoints me to some extent, because there's really not been a good answer to that. But I have to agree with my colleague on my left on this side that that's probably the direction we're going. But I just really would have appreciated understanding the questions that would come in, that there would have been folks that council members could have looked in the eye and said, we're the ones that made that decision. We've hired you to talk to the council members, but I really wish it had been done that way, and I look forward to those folks maybe answering some questions tomorrow Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garrett. I have 2 additional folks in the queue. We are way behind, so I don't want to cut off the discussion by any means, but if you can keep your answers or your questions short, that would be great. Councilmember Maynard.
I don't know how to do that.
I was
so
just saying, I didn't mean to say it right before I handed you the
I won't be
mic.
able to comply with that. You know, this is a sensitive situation where you have the legal department, you have the different organizations, as Councilman Stein stated, to negotiate a deal. And we were told last year and months before that how sensitive this was because there's some complications, and be patient and allow them the process to negotiate. Then when it comes to the council, then we have terms that I consider very material, even though Councilman Tigert may have a point, that in my opinion, this will materially change the settlement negotiation or the settlement agreement that's proposed before us that was entered into or agreed to contingent upon us passing it. And so I'm voting no because I just don't think that you can come in and change where we will then demand that Comcast provide 2 digital adapters upon the request of the customer. I mean, you are now dealing with the business relationship, customer business relationship between the consumer and the provider, and now we're dictating revenue, costs, and what they can and cannot without it properly, not within the proper context of the negotiations that took place. So, you know, unless I'm wrong, for the legal department, I mean, to me, this amendment is a material change to the settlement terms. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think just from a business perspective, the deal is the deal, and obviously if you start changing the terms, and they're going to want to take another look at it, and you know, not that you couldn't do that, but you're right. It's part of their revenue stream, it's part of what they calculated in coming up with the whole deal. So it's hard to pick up one thing and take it out, and everything else stays the same.
And as I close in my breath short statement, that there's no way to even calculate what this financial impact would be if we pass this amendment, even though it's done in good faith. What would be the economic impact to Comcast, which was not considered when you guys negotiated the settlement? That's why I'm voting no. The brevity, I hope, is appreciated. Thank you.
It is. Thank you. Thank you very much, Councilman Maynard. I have another like Councilman Holloman. Would you like to speak?
Councilman Stein wanted to help me.
Okay. I hated to interrupt.
I just want to follow up on what Councilman Maynard was saying, and I think it's a good point. I mean, I do think we all are generally supportive of the idea of not charging the fee, but I do understand when you have a contract negotiation, you give some things, you get some things, and you end up with the deal that you struck. I just wanted to ask Metro Legal, and maybe Terry or Saul, I assume that the $1.99 fee was something, I don't think this was a surprise. I assume that there was discussion of this in the negotiations, and I just wanted to know if it was specifically considered, debated, discussed, and if it was, why it was that you let go on that versus maybe some other elements of the agreement.
Well, now that I have heard a little bit more explanation of what the council member intended by the reference to the fee, and also from Mr. Weaver in terms of how Comcast considers the fee, it does seem to me that it is arguably just a question of itemization of like how they itemize charges on their monthly bill as a part of their rate, in which case his argument would probably be correct about the preemption. I do think that there was discussion of that $1.99, but not in the general rate context, because there was not any discussion of the rate because of the preemption issue.
So you negotiated an overall rate, and this is just one component of that. And if I'm understanding Councilman Tigert, what he's saying is, whereas other elements may relate to whether I pick up the deluxe package or the basic cable, this is a flat piece of the rate that is paid by everyone. Is that what you're understanding?
Well, I mean, basically because of the rate deregulation in this area, because of the effective competition, and I think the existence of the effective competition is pretty undisputed. The issue of what they can pass through is kind of a business decision that they make. You know, what components they include, you know, in what they charge their subscribers is, you know, and how they itemize that on the bills. I mean, there's FCC regulations that address that. And, you know, there have been issues in our Metro Code in terms of some aspects of that as well. But we did not discuss any rate issues in these negotiations because of that federal preemption. The only discussion that I can think of that we had of that, and Keith or Jackie can certainly correct me if they remember something differently, but was really in terms of the courtesy service provided to metropolitan government itself.
But you do think this is part of what's preempted? Is that?
Based on, assuming that it is a part of the rate, then I would say so, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
That's very simple. The reason we didn't discuss it in terms of this is it's part of their rate package, and we are not allowed by federal law to raise any issues about it.
Thank you, Ms. Strago. Councilmember Tiger.
If it's part of the rate package, why does it appear on a different line from the rate?
Likewise, Councilman, they have an opportunity to lay out their bill, their invoice to us as consumers in any way they choose. And they tend to itemize everything individually.
Well, I've got a basic package or whatever I've got with, you know, high def and this, that, and a big number. And then on the back, hidden back there is $1.99 that for 2.5 years was not even discussed. It was given to us. Now, I can understand if they said every customer coming forward, we have to buy new equipment and you have to pay the $1.99. But for those of us that have had it and we haven't had to pay for it, and we were told that we didn't have to pay for it, and then right at this negotiation, the $1.99 starts up and we can't do anything about it. It's deceptive to me. And I didn't mean to disparage, I know the hard work you're doing. And I just would have felt a lot better at this process if there had been somebody there representing retirees that every $2, $4 that we're taking out of their pocket every month impacts these folks and means it's another meal or it's a movie, it's something they're having to do without.
Believe me, sir, I think we all understand that. And what we have tried to do in the whole thing is set it up because we need to recognize they're in a competitive environment and customers can speak with their feet.
And I guarantee you, if I call up and say, all right, I'm shopping your competitor and this competitor and you, they're going to say your basic rate is going to be X dollars per month. Oh, by the way, we didn't tell you about this fee, this fee, this fee, this fee, which isn't part of that rate because it's labeled a different place on the bill and it's hard to find. You have to know what you're looking for. So when they quote that fee, it ought to be included in there so I can make a true determination of what I'm paying. So everybody else can vote no. I'm voting yes. Thank you.
Okay, we are now back to the original amendment. Council Lady Weiner, your light is on. Did you want to discuss the amendment?
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, my question is based on something Charlie just said. So is it legitimate for us to be changing a fee, or will the feds overrule that, number one, part A? Part B, given that they are not disclosing fees on the front end, can we require that all additional fees be disclosed in addition to basic fees? Those are my questions.
Thank you, Council Lady.
Anything having to do with the fee, no matter how it's broken down, I mean, that is their business decision. The council has no control over that. I need to clarify something I said earlier. When I said I couldn't find any issue with this, I didn't realize that there was a $1.99 fee. I thought we were just talking about them charging a one-time equipment charge or something. I didn't realize it was built into the fee structure. So that does alter the preemption argument some. But no, I mean, that is their decision, and unfortunately the council has no control over that.
So what you're saying is we cannot require them to disclose all their fees?
No, we cannot require them to do anything regarding the what the fee consists of, what services are provided, or how that is broken down to the customer.
And the feds would not allow us to?
Well, there's a severability clause in the ordinance, so it would just be ineffective if the amendment were added.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, can I have a vote on the amendment, please? All those in favor? And we're going to have to do a show of hands. All those in favor, can you take this for me?
Yes.
Okay, I see one. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Everybody got it up? Who's on the Budget and Finance Committee? Thank you. The amendment is not recommended. We are now on the third amendment. Councilmember Tygart.
Thank you. I would move Amendment 3. Basically, this body has gone on record. Let me get my glasses.
Can I have a second, please? Thank you, Councilman Garrett.
As far back as 2003, this body passed a resolution asking Comcast to consider providing a discounted package to senior and disabled citizens. Now, I don't know about you, okay. In 2010, we passed a similar resolution sponsored by Councilman Ryman. Many seniors and disabled citizens in Nashville are on fixed incomes and have difficulty affording monthly cable service subscriptions. And we simply asked the CATV Special Committee to attempt to negotiate a discount, a lesser package for those that qualified. Now, my 86-year-old mother may have 60 or 70 channels, but that's about 40 more than she needs to not be confused about what channel Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune is on.
I like Jeopardy.
So for 13 years, we've been waiting for Comcast, someone representing our citizens, to come up with a discounted package specifically for those citizens. The amendment asked them to talk with AARP, 50 Forward, Senior Living, and it lists several options, but at least 3 senior-oriented groups to find out what channels are important to those citizens, and is there a possibility of bundling those up for a special package for our seniors and those least able to afford their cable TV. That's what amendment number 3 does.
Thank you. And why don't we have a legal opinion on what this amendment does, and then we'll have discussion.
Well, since the amendment concerns a discounted bundle for senior citizens, that falls under the same federal fee preemption issue.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Yeah, again, this is a laudable idea. I think it's an idea that, unless I'm mistaken, would be hugely supported by our CATV committee. We're preempted by federal law from doing anything about it. So if we want to cast a vote here symbolically to say that, yes, we are in favor of this very good idea, again, we're just casting about doing something that we know is not appropriate under federal law. So again, it's a wonderful idea, and I wish we could do it, but we can't.
Thank you, Councilmember Stein. Councilmember Garrett.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Jim if you would ask the folks who will be here tomorrow night if they would just address the issue in a letter to the council members concerning why they can, Sarah Jo, why they can or cannot. You don't have to say it now, but at least it would give us something in writing to tell folks why we can't have a discounted package, and at least to give us some grounds in some form or fashion to. It's always, it's like Ronnie said, Councilman Stein said, we'd all love to do this. I think there wouldn't be, but it would at least give us an opportunity to have something in writing from Viacom as to why or why not we can't do this.
We can take that in a letter. We don't need an explanation.
In a letter, yes, please.
Explanation now. Thank you so much. Councilmember Tygart.
Can I ask Mr. Durbin or Ms. Rago, was these previous resolutions passed by this council, was this considered as part of the negotiations at all?
Before Ms. Trago addresses that, Mr. Cooper has an update on that resolution.
The 2010 resolution was considered by the council. However, there was never any official action taken on that one. The first resolution did pass that went to Comcast, but the one that would have gone to the CATV committee was never officially acted on, so they would have
Thanks for that clarification. I didn't mean to misspeak.
Okay.
Ms. Rago?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Trago.
Let me phrase my question this way. If Comcast doesn't have to answer to this body because of these federal regulations and whatnot at any time previously, it would seem to me that the only time to ask Comcast to make concessions or to develop a package that to me would be wildly successful from a marketing standpoint would be during negotiations for a new agreement. Was this topic ever considered during these negotiations?
Sir, as we gave you earlier, since 1996, the CATV committee has been precluded from asking about rates. I served on this committee since prior to that date. Believe me, I do understand your frustration. The biggest thing that we have tried to deal with is trying to get the city in a position to have an agreement to get as many pieces out of this that would be supportive of the public and supportive of Metro government and where our costs are related to this. We are very much bound and limited by federal law and now also by state law. So when Mr. Stein says we've been negotiating with arms behind our back, believe me, we think that is so much the case. I can agree with you entirely, but I can't do anything about it.
I can understand if you were trying to say you're charging $50 for this and we think it ought to be $40. I'm not talking about a rate. I'm talking about a package to citizens, and they can charge what they want. We're just asking it to come up with something discounted for seniors who may not need 180 channels.
The best we've been able to do is there is in the provision, and I think this is still the case, a basic tier, a minimal tier, which is just a handful of channels plus the over-the-air channels. That's still in place, right? That is the only, if you will, less expensive option with very few channels. Unfortunately, it may also eliminate some of those channels that some of our seniors would very much like to watch.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That you know, if you offer us something that doesn't give me my Wheel of Fortune network, then a senior whose day is built around Wheel of Fortune, it's useless.
All I can say is to the degree that seniors coalesce, work themselves together, and go and say together, we're all going to cancel it, they're not going to have much say about what's going to happen. But it is in the marketplace for that to occur.
Well, I've since now identified you as the point person, and these 50 people that have called me about the $1.99 or the senior package or whatnot, I for one refuse to be told we can't work out something. And if it takes an organized protest, if it takes marching on Waller Lanston's office or wherever Comcast operates out of, then that's what needs to happen.
And that could very well be.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take this off. We're now on the amendment, the third amendment. Councilmember, any additional discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, the third amendment, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hands. And if you can do that count for me. Okay. The amendment is not recommended. We are now back on the original bill. Any discussion? Councilmember Stein.
I'll be very brief. It's really unfair to put this off on our CATV committee, the ITS, or our legal department. If there's a remedy in any of this, it's with the federal government. So I encourage you to go see Congressman Cooper or go see the Repubs and talk to them about this. But it takes federal legislation to give our people the authority to negotiate this. And it's unfair to put the blame on anybody in this situation that's working on the local level, because they've done a terrific job at great cost to themselves in terms of the volunteers that have been involved in this.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the bill, All those opposed? Did you get that?
10-4.
10-4, 1 against. The bill is recommended. I would like to especially thank former council member Keith Durbin and Ms. Strago for being here and for answering our questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. We have one final bill before we'll roll to the the bill that we had earlier. BL 2013-397, sponsors Matthews, approves an extension of a contract between Metro government and Coca-Cola for beverage services at various Metro facilities. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? The bill is recommended. We are now back to the original bill at the beginning, RS 2013-633, sponsors Matthew, appropriates $11,054,900 in supplemental appropriations from the undesignated fund balance and other sources to various departments and programs to balance their fiscal year 2012 through 13 operating budgets. And we had questions for the education. Yes, and I see Mr. Henson is here. So if Mr. Henson, if you would just want to come to the podium, we'll just get this going. All right, who's got a question? Councilmember Stein. And by the way, thank you for coming over here.
Well, and let me say I apologize. We had a special called school board meeting at 3:30 this afternoon, and I apologize for not being here.
The first part of the question is a very simple one. Will you describe to us the need for the supplemental and why it arose and what the money goes for?
I will, thank you. As part of our budget deliberations and discussions for the 2012-2013 budget, part of the budget reductions was a $2.7 million reduction to the textbook line item. The reason for that $2.7 million reduction in that line item was because the literature adoption, all of the subject areas for textbook adoptions are based on a 6-year cycle. And this year, one of the subject areas up for adoption was literature, grades 7 through 12. The State Department of Education had recommended to school districts across the state to go ahead and adopt the literature adoption, but to not purchase, pending discussions regarding the alignment of the literature textbook adoption with the new Common Core standards. And so that had not been resolved during the spring or during the summer or even during the early fall when the budget was being put together and ultimately approved. Ultimately, the State Department of Education did go ahead and make recommendations regarding which literature textbooks did align with the new Common Core standards. And so school districts then were able to make purchases. So the thinking was that this purchase of these textbooks would come out of the school district's fund balance so that they could be purchased during this fiscal year, knowing that there are other subject areas up for adoption for the 13-14 year.
And obviously these funds do come from the school's fund balance, and the balance after this appropriation will still be over 7%?
That's correct.
And then the last question is one that I've got to ask because it just follows a logic of activity in this community. If indeed the State Board of Education had not, I don't know, for lack of a better term, levied the $3 million, however much it was, fine over the charter school issue, would you be asking for this supplemental?
Yes, we would, because it would be an increase to the appropriated amount from the Metro Council on the expenditure side. The $3.4 million was on the revenue side, and so it would not have affected the appropriated amount of expenditures.
Thank you.
Councilmember Garrett.
Quick question, Chris. How much between 3% and 7.2 is that in your reserves? You know, you got to have 3%. That's state law. What's the estimated amount in the reserves?
Current estimated amount?
Yes, sir.
It's approximately $53 million.
Thank you. And excuse me if I'm wrong. So what about the charter school we were talking about that costing 40 or so for the coming up year?
In the budget proposal for fiscal year 14, based upon the State Department calculation of the per pupil amount, the estimate is just over $40 million would be a transfer out of the general purpose fund budget over to the charter schools.
Thank you, sir.
Any additional questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of RS 633, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The bill is recommended. Mr. Henson, thank you for coming. Thank you all. We are adjourned.